A family earning more money than their parents ever did can still end up with less security than their parents ever had. And almost nobody stops to ask why. Wages have risen for decades, job titles have gotten longer. Households now often have two incomes instead of one, and yet, across much of the middle class, the feeling of being financially behind has only deepened. This is the quiet contradiction sitting underneath modern life. Income has gone up, peace of mind has gone down. Somewhere between the paycheck and the bank account, value is leaking out, and most people never see where it goes because it isn't stolen in one dramatic moment. It disappears in small, invisible increments spread across decades, hidden inside habits that look completely normal. What follows is not a story about bad luck or unfair employers. It is a story about how an entire class of hardworking, intelligent, well-meaning people can follow all the expected rules and still end up standing still, or worse, quietly sliding backward while believing they're moving forward. To understand what is really happening, it helps to separate two things that get treated as the same but are not: income and wealth. Income is what arrives, wealth is what remains, and more importantly, what that remainder is capable of producing on its own. A household can bring in a comfortable salary every month and still have almost no wealth because everything that comes in immediately leaves again through a mortgage, a car payment, insurance, groceries, subscriptions, and the dozens of small charges that make up an ordinary life. The middle class, as it is commonly understood, is often defined by income bracket, but income bracket says nothing about direction. A person earning a respectable salary while accumulating debt is moving in a very different direction than a person earning the same salary while acquiring assets. Two households can look identical on paper, drive similar cars, live in similar neighborhoods, and still be walking two completely different financial paths, one toward gradual independence and one toward permanent dependence on the next paycheck. The danger of the middle class is not poverty. It is the illusion of stability sitting on top of a foundation that never actually gets built.
Underneath all of this sits a force that rarely gets blamed because it moves too slowly to notice in real time: the steady erosion of purchasing power. Every year, the same amount of money buys a slightly smaller slice of life. Groceries cost more, housing costs more, education costs more, healthcare costs more. None of these increases feel dramatic in isolation, which is exactly why they are so effective. A 5% increase this year and another the next year does not announce itself as theft. Yet compounded over a decade or two, it behaves exactly like one. Savings sitting in a low-yield account are not neutral. They are shrinking in real terms, even while the number on the screen stays the same or grows slightly. This is the cruelest kind of financial loss because it never triggers alarm. Nobody feels robbed watching a static number. They only feel confused later, wondering why the same salary that once felt sufficient now barely covers the same lifestyle. Inflation does not attack wealth directly. It attacks the value of money over time, and the people who never convert idle cash into productive assets are the ones who absorb that attack in full, year after year, without ever identifying the source. Layered on top of this economic pressure is a psychological one that is arguably more damaging because it is self-inflicted rather than external. As income rises, spending tends to rise right alongside it, often outpacing the increase entirely. This pattern shows up in nearly every income bracket, which is why doctors, engineers, and successful small business owners can still find themselves living paycheck to paycheck, despite earning far more than the national average. A raise arrives, and almost immediately life expands to absorb it. The car gets upgraded, the apartment becomes a bigger apartment. Dinners out become more frequent and more expensive. None of these choices look reckless individually. Each one feels earned, reasonable, even responsible. But collectively, they form a treadmill where the pace of spending always keeps up with the pace of earning, leaving the gap between the two, the only gap that actually builds wealth, permanently thin or non-existent. This is not a story about greed or excess. It is a story about how comfort quietly consumes opportunity, one reasonable purchase at a time, until an entire income has been absorbed into a lifestyle that produces nothing beyond itself.
Debt enters this picture not as a villain, but as a tool that gets misused so often it starts to look like a natural part of adult life. Financing a car instead of buying one outright, carrying a balance on a credit card, stretching a mortgage to the very edge of affordability. These choices are so common they rarely get questioned. But debt used to fund consumption behaves very differently than debt used to acquire something productive. A loan taken to buy a depreciating vehicle is not building anything. It is renting the illusion of ownership while paying interest for the privilege. Multiply that pattern across a household, across a decade, across an entire generation, and the interest payments alone represent years of income transferred away from the person who earned it and toward the institution that financed their lifestyle. The middle class rarely goes broke through one catastrophic decision. It goes broke, or stays financially fragile, through 1,000 small financing decisions that each felt necessary and affordable in the moment, none of which were evaluated against a simple question: does this debt help me build something, or does it simply let me spend money I have not yet earned? Behavioral finance offers a clear explanation for why intelligent people keep making these same patterns without recognizing them. Human beings are wired for the present. A dollar spent today feels more real and more rewarding than a dollar invested for a future that has not arrived yet. This is not a character flaw unique to certain people. It is a basic feature of how the mind evaluates time and reward. Add to this the powerful pull of social comparison, the quiet pressure to match the lifestyle of neighbors, co-workers, and friends, and the pattern becomes almost automatic. Nobody consciously decides to sacrifice their future for a slightly nicer kitchen or a slightly newer car. The decision happens gradually, justified in small pieces, each one reasonable on its own. The mind is excellent at rationalizing present comfort and remarkably poor at feeling the weight of a future that has not happened yet. This is precisely why financial discipline is not really about knowledge. Most people already know they should save more and spend less. The gap is not information. The gap is the emotional pull of now against the abstract, distant, less vivid pull of later.
The deeper issue, the one that separates the middle class from those who eventually escape it, is not income at all. It is what that income gets converted into. Wealth is built through ownership of things that produce value on their own, without requiring continuous labor to sustain them. A rental property generates income, whether or not the owner is actively working that day. A share of a well-run business grows in value as that business grows, independent of the shareholder's daily effort. A skill that compounds through mastery becomes more valuable the longer it is developed. The middle class, on average, tends to accumulate the opposite: possessions that lose value the moment they are purchased, subscriptions that quietly drain money every month for services barely used, and homes that, while valuable, are often financed so aggressively that the bank holds far more equity than the family does for the first 15 or 20 years. None of these purchases are irrational in isolation. The problem is proportion. A household that channels the overwhelming majority of its income to consumption and only a small fraction into ownership will always struggle to build wealth, regardless of how much that household earns, because wealth requires assets that work on their own, and consumption, no matter how enjoyable, never does. There are also forces at play that go beyond individual choice.
structural shifts in the broader economy that have made this climb steeper than it once was. Housing prices in many regions have grown faster than wages for years, stretching the traditional path to homeownership further out of reach or deeper into debt. The cost of higher education has risen dramatically, often financed through loans that follow graduates for a decade or more before those loans are cleared. Healthcare costs continue climbing in ways that can destabilize even a well-managed household budget after a single unexpected event. These are not excuses, and they do not remove personal responsibility from the equation, but they are real headwinds that make the old formula of simply working hard and saving diligently less reliable than it used to be. The middle class of previous generations often built wealth through a stable job, a modest mortgage, and decades of steady saving. That formula still works in pieces, but it is no longer sufficient on its own, because the cost side of the ledger has grown faster than the income side for a meaningful stretch of modern economic history. Recognizing this is not about assigning blame. It is about understanding that the strategy itself needs updating, not abandoning.
Breaking free from this pattern rarely requires a dramatic event. It requires a shift in where attention goes first. Households that build lasting financial strength tend to treat investing not as something done with whatever's left over at the end of the month, but as a fixed commitment made before spending begins, the same way a bill gets paid. This single reordering, paying the future first instead of last, changes the entire trajectory of a financial life, because it removes the decision from the emotional, present-focused part of the mind and turns it into a structural habit that happens automatically. Alongside this, there is enormous value in slowing down the pace at which lifestyle expands with income. This does not mean living without joy or comfort. It means being deliberate about which upgrades are worth making and which ones are simply reactions to what everyone else appears to be doing. Every dollar directed toward an appreciating, income-producing asset instead of a depreciating convenience is a small vote cast toward future independence. None of these votes feel significant on their own. Over 10 or 20 years, their cumulative effect is the entire difference between a household that remains financially fragile despite a good income and one that quietly, steadily becomes financially free. The middle class does not shrink because its people lack intelligence, effort, or good intentions. It shrinks or stagnates because the entire system of modern life is engineered to encourage spending in the present and defer thinking about the future until it feels urgent, by which point the most valuable years for compounding have already passed. Wealth has never been primarily about how much a person earns. It has always been about what a person keeps, what that person owns, and how patiently that ownership is allowed to grow while everyone else is focused on appearances. The families who eventually break the pattern are rarely the ones who found some secret income source. They are the ones who quietly changed their relationship with money, treating it less like fuel for a lifestyle and more like a tool for building something that outlasts any single paycheck. That shift does not happen overnight, and it does not require perfection. It requires a willingness to see the difference between looking financially comfortable and actually being financially secure, and the humility to choose the second, even when nobody around is applauding the choice. That, more than any single strategy or investment, is what separates a class of people who work for money their entire lives from those who eventually build something that works for them.